Hey guys, hope you're doing well. My name is Emma and today I'm going to take you through all of my knitting updates, progress that I've made over the last month. Can you believe it's already the end of January? Like, where did that go? Ignore the hair, I just washed it and we're air drying because if it's hot, I don't want to use a hairdryer. Right, so I'm going to start with my newest cast on, which is my gift knit, because I've been working on it the most over the last month and everything else is kind of, like, I've made a little bit of progress on each item, but we'll talk about them, but they should be fairly quick updates. Let's hope. I always say that and then the video is like an hour long. But anyways, first piece up is my gift knit. So this was the Zipper Sweater Light, which is a pattern by Petite Knit. It calls for a DK weight yarn and knit on 4.5mm needles. So there's two different versions of the Zipper Sweater. There's like a standard one, which is a little bit more of a heavier weight, and this is the like lighter, thinner kind of yarn weight. So I'll quickly run over the construction of this piece before I get to my thoughts on it. So it is a top-down knit in a raglan style. You start by doing basically like a provisional cast on using what's it called, Judy's Magic Cast On, where you kind of like cast on over two needles, and then you're meant to have two sets of needles. I don't have two sets of needles, but I put one set of stitches on stitch holders and then worked the ribbing section for the folded collar that you see here. So you knit all the ribbing, fold it over, and then you join with the other stitches that you originally casted on and then start working down from there. You do some German short rows across the back whilst doing the raglan increases, give it some back shaping. And then you're basically continuing to knit down flat so that we get this gap here, which is actually where the zipper will go later on. So you knit flat until you've got down to the appropriate length for your zipper. You then join in the round and you continue to work until you're ready to separate the body and sleeves. Mine was basically about the same time. And then once you've separated, you just continue to work the body in the round all the way down until you're happy with the length. Finish off with some ribbing and Italian bind off. You then pick up your sleeve stitches, work them in the round. There's some gradual decreases worked in down the sleeve, and then you finish the same as the body with some ribbing and Italian bind off. Lastly, you have to install your zipper by either you can hand sew or machine sew it in, which I think is where most of the difficulty rating comes from for this particular pattern. So for mine, I've knit mine using this 100% cashmere, which is from Temu, so I don't know if it actually is 100% cashmere, but it feels really nice. It's really nice and soft and lovely. It's in the colour coffee, and it is quite thin, so I've held this one double. And it comes with like a supporting cotton as well, which I've held in with it too. I did have some mohair that I was considering to add in with this, but the browns were like different tones, and so I opted not to use the mohair for mine. Now my gauge is off, so I'm using 4.5mm needles. Initially, when I did my gauge swatch, I thought I was really only off by like one stitch when I had sized up my needles. So I thought I was going to make a pretty perfect jumper according to the pattern. And when I started knitting, I remeasured my gauge, and it turns out I'm actually way off by like 5 stitches. So I had to kind of adapt as I was going. So I initially cast it on as medium, and then I've kind of adapted and gone to like an extra large in terms of the stitch count. Kind of down here, it's not quite perfect, but it's close enough. I also found that I had to keep going down in length as well. So I just kind of held my zipper up into this gap to kind of get the estimate on what length to go to before joining in the round, but I joined in the round a lot later than what the kind of pattern suggested for. And also on my raglans, so I had actually done all the increases to the extra large, which, it's 2XL. So that should give me the right kind of ease on it, but the length, like kind of under the underarm, still wasn't quite right. So I continued to knit down for a little bit longer. You can probably see there that it, like the raglan increase kind of like disappears into the fabric, just so that it's not sitting too like high up on the underarms. It's just a smidge lower, and you can't really see that because that bit tucks kind of under the underarm, so it's not noticeable when you try it on. So far, I've really enjoyed knitting this piece. I've spent about just shy of 50 hours working on this so far, and I'm quite surprised actually with how quickly it's kind of coming together. I kind of thought with having such small needles and it being a sweater, so it's, you know, kind of the largest garment you're going to make, that it would take ages. But we've made pretty good progress. I'm not going to lie, when you get to the bit just before separating for your sleeves, it becomes a bit cumbersome because each round that you're knitting takes like half an hour, so you don't, you know, progress slows. But once you separate, you're working with less stitches and you start to like pick up pace again on seeing some piece kind of grow. So I've really been enjoying it. This fabric is really nice to work with as well. Like, this yarn is lovely. It's so soft. I wish you could feel it. I'm always like, it's so nice, but you'll never know. It's really lightweight. The fabric that it's like kind of turning into as well, I'm really enjoying too. So I learned that I don't really like these kind of like thicker, heavier yarns, which a lot of sweaters are made from, but this one is like nice and lightweight. It's drapey, but it's like, it's warm, so I reckon this is going to be lovely to wear. By the way, I'm making myself one identical to this afterwards, so like, I'm super excited about the gift knit because I know how mine's going to turn out when I finally get around to making one for myself. I'm finding the pattern pretty easy to follow as well. I think it's pretty well written pattern. Everything so far has been fairly straightforward to knit. I think the only kind of confusing step for me was with the joining of the seam. The kind of like, it was a new technique for the cast on, but I just watched a video and it was fairly straightforward. Once you kind of get the hang of it, you can get it going pretty easy. And I quite like this the Judy's Magic Cast On. I'm pretty sure it's Judy's Magic Cast On it's called. I quite like that as a option for provisional cast on. I wish I knew about this when I was doing my camisole with the little 4 stitches that you had to have a provisional cast on, because you had to insert a needle into them afterwards. So if I had done the Judy's cast on, I could have left one needle hanging there, worked the triangle down, then used this needle to knit strap up. It would have been so much easier than doing the little provisional cast on, then trying to pick up the 4 stitches, you know. Anyways, so with this one, you're meant to have 2 sets of needles. So basically, you need a total of 3 needles is what you need for this one. So you cast on with your 2 needles. You do the double, you know, you cast on over 2 needles. You put 1 set on hold, and then you work the other set. And when it comes to joining, you're basically got stitches on 2 needles, and then you've got your working needle that you'll stitch those 2 stitches together to join. And you basically, it results in this really seamless join. So if you can see there on the inside, this coat hanger's in the way. So you can see here, you just get like quite a seamless looking join for your folded collar, and it looks like nothing on the back as well. Mine looks a little bit gapey because I actually sized up when I was doing my cast on, because it's normally easier to pick up stitches when you do that. But it's just created like a really nice seamless folded collar. So I'm definitely going to use that technique for any time it calls for like a provisional cast on, or if I'm doing any beanies or anything like that, I want to do a folded rim on it. I'm 100% going to use this technique moving forward because it's super easy and it's really seamless and looks really neat and tidy as well. If you didn't have a spare needle to use to hold those stitches, I wouldn't stress too much. I think you could totally just seam your collar down once you've started on your yoke, and you just would have like a seam on the inside. So it's not really the end of the world if you don't have a spare needle to use to seam them 2 together. But that was really the only kind of complicated step. But I just looked up a video as well on how to seam the collar. I just like Googled, also you put into YouTube zipper sweater collar or something like that, and it came up with a video straight away with someone actually doing it themselves, so I was able to copy that very easily. I will say in the pattern, as with all of the patterns that I've kind of got so far from any Scandinavian designers, the links to videos all in their native language, so it's a little bit annoying to click on and you have to like read subtitles whilst trying to look at what they're doing, so I prefer just to search them. On these petite knit ones, I don't know if this is the same for all of their patterns or just this particular pattern, but it doesn't even reference the actual video. It just says see video tutorial on our website. And so you go onto their website, there's a link to it, then you have to go click videos and then find the appropriate video. I couldn't find the one for this folded joining of this folded collar. I don't know what it was called and to like look into it, but I clicked into a couple and I was like, oh, these are all in Danish or Swedish or whatever it was in, so I kind of like gave up on it very quickly. But from a user perspective on the pattern, that's a little bit of an annoying thing I find with these patterns, but other than that, it's well written, everything makes sense. I haven't had any issues, and like I say, you can always type in a technique into YouTube and there's going to be a million videos that come up, so the fact that their videos are not as accessible for me doesn't matter. Other than that, do I have any other thoughts on this piece? No, I'm just loving how it's coming together. I'm making myself one exactly the same, so once this is done, I'll probably start on one for myself at some point. I'm doing the same colorway as well. I really like this brown color. I think I might have actually ordered too much of this yarn, so I think they come in 6 packs. And I'm holding 2 strands together, and so far, like this is how much I've got left of my second ball. So I've gone through technically 4 balls of the yarn, so not quite one whole packet, and I'm already about a third way through. So I think I allocated 3 6-packs to this. So I don't think I'm going to end up using all of the yarn that I've bought, which is actually fine because, as I mentioned last month, I think I might, if I've got enough leftover yarn, make a ribbed tee using this fabric, because I feel like this colour and this yarn will work really nicely for the ribbed tee as well. And then if I've still got more left over after that, maybe I'll make myself a matching beanie too. Everything's going to be in this brown colour because I really like this brown colour. I think it looks really nice. I think it looks good on my skin too. So yeah, that's the Zipper Sweater Light. So this is going to be against all primary focus because I need to get it done ideally before Mother's Day so I can ship it off. But I'm pretty confident that I'm going to have no issues getting this done, and I'll still be able to work on my other pieces and get those done as well without too much stress. Like, it's coming together a bit quicker than I expected, so that's a good thing. And my ribbed tee, as you can see, we haven't made much progress on her since last month, and we'll get to that. But first, so this is a pattern by Knitting for Olive. Is it Knitting for Olive? Yeah. Ribbed tee is by Knitting for Olive, so it is knit using a fingering weight yarn, 3mm needles. It's a very, very basic pattern. It is a top-down raglan style knit in a 2x2 rib, and it comes in both a long sleeve and a short sleeve version. I'm making the long sleeve version. It will look like this. Basically, you start by just casting on for the neckline. You use a slightly smaller needle to do a 1x1 rib. You then switch to your larger needles, establish a 2x2 ribbing. You do some German short rows across the back to give it some shaping whilst working your raglan increases. And you're basically just working down in the round until you separate the sleeves, knit the body into the length you're happy with, and then you do the sleeve option that you would like and just knit that to the length that you're happy with. So very, very easy pattern. For mine, I'm using 2 different yarns, both purchased off Temu, both obviously in black. The first one is a 70% merino, 20% nylon, 10% silk blend, and the other yarn is a 100% silk, supposedly. We don't know. I sized up in my needles to a 3.25 because I was a little bit off gauge. I still am off gauge. but that just kind of gave me the right opacity to the fabric that I wanted. And I'm making mine in a size large to account for the gauge. Oh, and the only other thing that I did different is I did the tubular cast on for my neckline there. And yeah, let me remind you of my mistake right there. I did try it on and it looks actually quite nice. I put it onto some stitch holders. By the way, I brought more stitch holders. Yeah, I put it on stitch holders and tried it on, and it actually looks really nice once it's like stretched out and on. So you can't see the mistake either. Now, why have we not made any progress here? Well, turns out I'm going to run out of yarn. So we've only knitted this, we haven't even separated for sleeves yet. We've still got like another, I think 5 centimeters or so before we separate for sleeves. And I've already had to change to a new ball of the silk yarn. Now, the reason I picked the ribbed tee to knit is because I had a packet of merino yarn and I had some leftover of the silk yarn from my camisole. And I initially actually brought these yarns to pair together to make camisole number 9, but then I changed my mind and whatnot. But anyways, I wanted to use up the leftovers of the silk, and I knew that this pairing would kind of work out for a finger and weight knit, which is why I ended up picking the ribbed tee to make. Now, because I already had to switch to a new ball of the silk, I was like, ooh, like we haven't made it very far. Like that's concerning. And then I weighed out my merino. Now I know the meterage of this, and we were about halfway through this. So one of these is 2 of these. So basically, anyways, I've wildly underestimated the meterage on the silk yarn, and I'm just not going to have enough. I have to buy some more if I want to finish this piece. And I really didn't want to buy any more yarn because the whole point of me making this was to use up what was in my stash. And these yarns, they only come in like 6 packs as well. So if I have to buy more, it's going to be a 6-pack. And so I don't want to be left with more leftovers, so to speak. So I strongly considered scrapping this piece. However, I did some math, and if I brought another 6-pack of the silk yarn, I should be left with like 1.5 balls of yarn left over if I had calculated that right. So I was okay with that. I was like, if I have to throw that in the bin or it stays in my stash, like it's not the end of the world. Like I can deal with that. So I decided that I would jump online and buy some more. However, guess what? This yarn, oh my gosh, I'm getting tangled. This yarn has now been discontinued. And I couldn't find anything that looked similar, like same kind of picture of anything that was silk. There were some that were like a silk and cotton blend, which to be honest, this probably is, but this was advertised as 100% silk, and I didn't want to kind of deviate from what I thought I was using. So again, I was like, oh, I think I might just scrap it. But then I saw another listing for this. So this was like a whole cone. It was meant to be, I think the weight was the same. And I read the comments and someone said this is like a 2-ply thread, which is what I think this is. But when I opened it up, I was like, I don't know if you're going to be able to see. I might have to do some sort of close up. But anyways, I don't know if you know. Can we tell? I don't know if we can tell. But there is definitely a difference in thickness, and I just don't think it's not too far off actually. I don't know. I was contemplating this. I was like, I think it's going to work because it's too thin. So anyways, I attempted to return it. I was like, fine, we'll scrap the project. I'll return this. But Temu did that thing where they are like, oh, we'll refund you. Just keep it though. Don't bother. So I got refunded for it. But now I've still got it, and so like now what am I going to use this up for? This whole freaking thing. I'll probably just end up donating it. But then I was thinking about it, and I was like, actually, if I hold this double, I did some math again, and hopefully my math is correct. I was like, I should actually have enough to finish this. The only thing is that this, I need to like rewind it because it's one massive cone, and That's a little bit annoying. But now I'm looking at it here and I'm like, actually, how far are we actually off? Oh no, double definitely looks more closer. Yeah. So anyways, long story short, I'm now stuck with this, but I could probably make it work, and I will probably have just enough to finish my rib tea. So I decided I will continue. So I've joined in another ball and I've done another couple rows, and that's basically all I've done since last month. And then I was doing the vacuuming, and this was like sitting on the floor, and I accidentally sucked up my like thing of thread, and then I ripped off a massive chunk of thread from my merino. So now this is not attached. So now I have to weave in a new end prematurely, which also annoys me. So I don't know. I'm getting really mixed messages from the universe on whether or not I should continue with this piece. It's like, you're going to run out of yarn. But then we give you another yarn that's not suitable, but then we won't refund you and you keep it anyways so you can make it work. And then, I don't know. But anyways, like I said, when I tried it on, it actually looked kind of cute. So that's kind of given me the motivation to keep this project alive and not scrap it. But that's where we're at with our road to tea. So the next two pieces are the cardigans that I've been working on, and if you remember from last month, the construction on these two are like more or less the same. So the first one I've got here is my full moon cardigan. So this is a free pattern by Drops Design. It's intended to be knit with their Drops Air, which is an Aran weight yarn. However, it is that kind of more lightweight, airy yarn, and it is knit using 6mm needles for the kind of majority of it. Ribbing is on 4mm needles. It is a fairly simple construction once you understand the pattern. So it's top-down raglan style cardigan. Because it is a cardigan, you are knitting flat. So you start by casting on some stitches at the back of your kind of collar, and then you do a round of increases. You then establish your brioche rib. They call it English rib in the pattern, sorry, but I'm pretty sure it's brioche anyways. So you establish that and you start working your yoke section, incorporating increases for your raglans and also some increases along the front there to shape the kind of the neckline of the cardigan. You then separate the body and sleeves, continue to knit down until you've got about 12 centimeters before your desired length. And then there's some charts to follow, which is very simple. It's just increases and decreases to create this kind of loop looking pattern there. And then once you've done those repeats, you move on to the ribbing. There is a round of increases before the ribbing is established. I'll touch on that in a second as well. But yeah, once you've done your ribbing, you bind off, and then you pick up your stitches for your sleeves, and you would work the brioche in the round this time, and you basically just continue sleeve until you're happy with the length. And then there are meant to be some decreases gradually down the sleeve, and you finish off in your ribbing and then bind off the same as the bottom that you've done there. Lastly, it will tell you to attach your button band. So it tells you to pick up stitches all the way along your sleeves here and then knit a horizontal like rib button band. You can see mine is different to that. And then you attach your buttons and you would be done. So for mine, I'm using the same cashmere yarn that I'm actually using in that zipper sweater. So just in different colorway, it's in color cream. Just one strand for this piece, and then I'm pairing it with 2 strands of this cream mohair, also from Temu. Only reason I'm using 2 strands of the mohair is because I'm trying to use it up because I don't have any other use for it. I'm using the same needles as called for in the pattern, but I am making mine in a size large just to account for gauge differences. So I should have about 20 centimeters of positive ease, and I feel like this one is coming out fairly true to that. And as you can see, I have done a different button band on mine. So I followed the same button band technique as I used in cardigan number 6. I really hope I've got those numbers around the right way. But basically that involves knitting the button band separately. We're doing like a vertical rib instead of what the pattern calls for a horizontal rib. And then I attached it just with like a single crochet seam after the fact. And once you attach your button band, that's when you then move on to your ribbing, because you kind of incorporate the button band with the ribbing. So it's a little bit more seamless at the bottom here versus if you had picked up your stitches, you would see like a line where the button band is. Now for the bottom, let's touch on this. It does call for some increases before you move on to your ribbing. Now when I initially read that in the pattern, I was like really confused as to why you would do that. Again, the pattern doesn't explain anything before you do it. It just lists out like 99 instructions in one sentence. And I was confused, like, why would I want to do that? I guess if you want a more straight fit to your cardigan, it makes sense, but I want mine to like cinch in a little bit because I have made mine a little bit more cropped than what the pattern probably intends to be. So I do want it to cinch in so that you get that bagginess kind of pulls in at the waist. So I was confused as to why I would want to do increases and not to decreases to cinch it in, but I realized the reason why you do that is because you are sizing down in your needles, and therefore your gauge is different, and therefore the fit is going to be much, much tighter than the body section. So I kind of did a rough little gauge swatch of ribbing based off my button band here. I did some math and I was like, oh yeah, no, the fit is going to be like a little bit too tight if I didn't do any increases. So I opted to follow the pattern. Now it tells you to kind of more or less do a setup round. It doesn't tell you that you're doing a setup round, but that is what you're doing. And on the side section, you place some markers, and in between those markers, you need to do an increase next to every knit stitch. And then when you move on to the ribbing, you just follow the stitch above. So it means the section kind of under the underarm where the increases are, you would have a 2x1 rib. So 2 knit columns, 1 purl column, whereas the kind of front sections and back sections that are more visible are 1x1 rib. Now, I kind of just wanted 1x1 rib all the way around. I was like, I don't know if I'm going to like the look of it changing to a 2x1 rib, even though it's on that kind of side of body where it shouldn't really be too noticeable. But I understand why they tell you to do that, because they want you to, your brioche columns to flow into the rib columns. And so by doing a 2x1 rib, you're keeping with that knit purl situation that you have above, even though you've added stitches. So you can see here, as if I can show you, so you can see here on the kind of back section that every like knit column flows into a knit column, and every purl column flows into a purl column. So it's nice and consistent all the way down. But if I turn and look at the side where I've done my increases, you can see that I've done mine a little bit differently. So like here's like a purl column, but then it goes into like a knit column for the ribbing section, because when I did my increases, so my initial round, I didn't read the instructions properly, and I put the markers in place, but I didn't do any increases. So I had to do like a second setup round, and I did all my increases, and then I just moved into a 1x1 rib. So there's some like messy stitches right here, but because they're on such small needles, you can't really see them. And that just means that my ribbing is consistent 1x1 rib, but it just means on the underarm section that these columns don't flow into the matching columns underneath. But you can't, again, it's on the side, so it's not noticeable. So you could adapt it and do the same as what I did, or follow the pattern. I think it would look fine either way. It's really not the end of the world to what you choose to do, because it's not really going to be that visible being on the like underarm. But I really do wish the pattern had like a sentence being like, here's what you're trying to achieve, like, you know, instead of just giving you 99 instructions in like one sentence. But yeah, so I've done that. I'm now up to the point of, I'm probably going to do another row or two on my ribbing. It's meant to be only 3 centimeters of ribbing on the bottom, but I feel like it maybe looks a little bit short currently, so I might do a couple more rows and then I'll move into my Italian bind off. Now I realized that I actually did my Italian bind off wrong on my other cardigan. You're meant to do a couple setup rows before you move into sewing the bind off, and I didn't do that previously, so we'll do it correctly on this one and we can see what the differences are. But that's basically where I'm up to on this. Now, I did think that this piece would have been finished by now, and the only reason it hasn't been finished is because I have not set up my filming space to film, and I'm at a point where I need to do that bind off step, and I want to film that bind off step, but then I haven't set up my filming space, so it's just sat on the side and hasn't been worked on, and so I can't move on to even picking up the sleeves, because again, it's something I probably want to film for my project vlog. So that's the reason why I haven't worked on this piece. And then I started my gift knit, and that's kind of just been easy to pick up because I'm actually not filming that gift knit. So I can work on that whenever I want without having to be I've reached a milestone. I have to set up the camera and do all this stuff. And the main reason I haven't set up my filming space is because I had to we had to get the carpet sprayed, and so I had to lift everything up off the carpet and stuff, and I haven't put things back. And so really, too long didn't read. I'm just lazy. That's it. Anyways, I think over this month, this one is going to be a priority to finish, so that I've at least got one completed piece, and I'll probably continue to work mostly on my zipper sweater as well. But I still have one more piece, and that is my Deep Woods cardigan. So this one again is very similar to a Full Moon. It's free pattern by Drops Design, also knit in Aran weight yarn, apart from this one calls for a sport weight to be held with the lace weight yarn. And it is meant to be knit on 5mm needles instead. The difference with this one as well is a slightly different pattern to it. You're still knitting top down with raglan increases. Apart from this one, it's just plain stock knit on the body sections, and you've just got that kind of cable detail that you can see that runs down the sleeve, so that will run the full length of the sleeve. Again, once you understand the pattern, it's a very simple pattern. You basically are just casting on for the neckline. You start working the yoke, so you follow the chart for the sleeve increases, the sleeve cabling, whilst doing increases for your raglan and to kind of shape that V neckline there as well. You then separate body sleeves. You just continue to work straight down and stock knit until you're happy with the length, and then finish off with some ribbing. Sleeves are then picked up and worked in the round, so you continue that cable all the way down, and then again finish off with some ribbing. Lastly, you would then pick up your stitches along the neckline to do the button band, which again calls for that kind of horizontal ribbing, and then attach your buttons last. So I'm still in two minds about the ribbing, whether or not I'm going to do that or do the same as what I've done for the other one. So we'll see when we get to that. I've used this alpaca blend yarn for my piece, so it is meant to be 60% alpaca, 20% wool, 20% acrylic. I picked it up off Temu as well, obviously in black. And I sized up in my needles to a 6mm needle in the hopes that that would give me a more kind of a drapier fabric, which it, to be honest, hasn't really because of this yarn. But when I did my little gauge swatch and I measured that out, I opted to make a size large based on my gauge, so that I got the kind of positive ease of around about 20 centimeters that I was looking for. And based on my measurements and the stitch and everything, if I had done the medium, we would be quite fitted, and then if I did the size large, we would be looking at a little bit too much positive ease, like 25 centimeters of positive ease, which I was like, might be a bit too baggy. So I was like, once we separate, I'll try it on and we'll see. And when I tried it on, I was like, this is actually quite fitted. And so I remeasured my gauge off of this knitted piece, and turns out I am very much close to gauge. I think I'm like one stitch off, and my gauge swatch was like many stitches off. So I don't know what's going on with my gauge swatching, but this happened on my Zipper Sweater Light, and now it's happened on this one. I'm wondering if it's because when I'm knitting flat and stock knit in real life, I'm using a smaller needle on my purl rows, and I'm wondering if that's affecting my gauge. But I wouldn't expect it to be 5 stitches difference. That's quite dramatic. So I don't know what's going on with my gauge swatching, but we're way off. So instead of doing some decreases to kind of maybe cinch it in, because I was worried it was going to be too big, I've actually added some increases under the arm. Now, I probably should have just ripped back and then done a couple more rows on my yoke to just account for the stitch count for a larger size. But the sleeves are already like quite large, I think, because of this cabling. Like they are kind of big sleeves as they are, or they seem like they're going to be big sleeves. So I've just added some increases under the underarm here where you won't really be able to see them. So I did 2 right side rows of increases, and I did 4 increases on each side. So I've done 16 stitches increased in total to my body section, which brings me closer to, I think it was the next size up. Was it? Did I write it down? Yeah, I don't know. I'm confusing myself with what size. I think I was actually knitting this in a medium. Yeah, so following the pattern gauge. So I'm reading my notes as I'm like looking at this. So I noted down here, following the pattern gauge, I would have knit a larger and extra large if I was on gauge. But because I had sized up and my gauge was off, I followed the pattern for a medium. And that should have given me positive ease of 25 centimeters. Which was quite large, but if I had done a size small, it would have given me 13 centimeters of positive ease. So it's quite a big jump between the small and the large. So with adding on these stitches to the body, I've sized up to another size just for the body section. And I've kind of tried it on and I think it's going to be better, but like, I don't know, I'm not loving this piece anyways. Like I mentioned last time, like this yarn is just, it's actually quite stretchy. I think that's what I'm not loving about it, is that it's quite stretchy. So I tend to hold a tighter tension on it when I'm working, and it's making my arms a little bit sore. So I'm trying to actively like loosen my stitch to knit. But this body section, it should actually be fairly quick to knit. I just haven't really worked on it since separating because that was the main part I wanted to get up to. I brought new stitch holders. That was one of the reasons why I was like, I don't think I'm actually going to be able to work on it because I didn't have enough stitch holders. But I brought some more. So now I can continue to work on this, but to be honest, priority is going to be finishing the full moon and working on my gift knit. And then if I have time, I'll work on my other ones as well. But I don't think this will see too much progress over the next month. So that's everything that I've been working on over the past month. I think there's been some really good progress, particularly on that zipper sweater. I'm super happy with how that's coming along. I would have hoped to have finished my full moon, but that's my own laziness more than anything. So in the next month, that one, I'm going to prioritize it to get finished because I don't think it's going to take me very long at all. So it's going to be full moon cardigan and zipper sweater are going to be the 2 main ones that I work on. So we might not really see any progress on the other 2 pieces. No new cast-ons. Nothing else is getting cast on, even though I have yarn for a lot of things. So I ended up getting a good deal on that cashmere yarn from Temu. You know how last time I was talking about how they gamify everything to get like discounts? Anyways, I got it. I hit the jackpot on one of them. And I got, I think 30% off was like kind of like you have to spend so much and you get like $1 discount, but it always works out to like around 30% off. So I ended up stocking up, and so I brought all the brown yarn, which I think I've got a little bit too much of. So as I mentioned, future cast-ons will possibly be another ribbed tee, but in brown, possibly another cable beanie, but in brown. I also brought some of that same cashmere yarn in black because I like the full moon cardigan so much, but I don't like the cream. So I brought 1 packet, and I already have some black mohair that I brought just to test the quality of the mohair. I didn't have any projects in mind, but I can use that up. And then I've got the cashmere. So we're going to make another full moon cardigan, but in black at some point. What else have I got? I've got that grey yarn sitting there for the Jenny sweater. Oh, and I also brought some that, again, that same cashmere yarn, but in red. So I'm going to go out of my comfort zone majorly and make a coloured piece. I'm going to do some colour work. However, the pattern that I picked is the Diana sweater, the black sheep Diana sweater. I'll pop that up here. Which I don't know how much I'll wear it, but the yarn was on special and I don't think it's going to require that much yarn, and it's colour work, which I haven't done before, so I kind of want to take on that challenge and make that at some point as well. So that will be coming out. I've got the yarn for all of those projects just hanging out, so hopefully I don't buy any more yarn for the foreseeable future because I have more than enough to use up on pieces, and then I think I'm good. I think I'm good for a little while. We'll be back to summer before I finish any of those pieces. So anyways, I'm rambling yet again. If you did enjoy this video, give us a thumbs up, leave us a comment, let us know what you're working on at the moment, because I always love to steal ideas, and if you're making something cool, even though I just said I won't buy any more yarn or anything, I might add it to my wish list. But yeah, that's it for this month. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. All right, bye guys. And so you have your 2 needles, and then you start knitting upwards on 1 to 3 needles. So you've got your 2 stitches on this one, and then your working needle. I don't know if any of that made sense. Method, normally you'd just have your circulars, right? You've got 2 needles with your circulars. So you need 2 sets, so 4 needles, right? You really only need 3 needles for this. Oh my God, am I making any sense? So I haven't actually made all too much progress. So I haven't really got too much progress, huge amount of progress, mainly because I haven't done that much progress. So I haven't done that much progress since I made too much progress. See, I have not made much progress on this. So not a lot of progress is made on her, too much progress. So I haven't made too much progress. So I haven't actually done too much. So I haven't made a huge amount of progress. I'm sweating so much, oh my gosh. Oh, my hair doesn't look that great. I might make it look nice. I might start that again. I don't like my hair. I think it looks really messy.